Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Right at Home Tuesday Talk. This is an opportunity for us to go a little bit deeper about an aspect of what it's like to be a franchisee or become a franchisee with Right at Home. This is a really awesome time to spend a little bit of time with some of our subject matter experts and teams across Right at Home. So today's topic is one near and dear to our heart. It's new franchisee onboarding and the process that we have here at Right at Home to help our franchisees launch. So I'm very fortunate to be here with Michelle Poppa. She's really a key player in our new franchisee onboarding process. So, Michelle, I'd love for you just to introduce yourself to the attendees here and those watching on the recording. Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Michelle Poppa. I've been with Right at Home for about 3 years. I started here on a different team actually and moved over to this team about a year ago, working with brand new owners who are entering our system for the first time to become franchise owners, and then also working with existing owners who are expanding their business and venturing out to other territories.
That's fantastic. And I didn't introduce myself. I'm Brady Schwab. I'm the Chief Growth and Strategic Operations Officer here at Right at Home. And growth and franchise development, it's right there in my title. So this is such an exciting topic for me to get to host. So Michelle, why don't you tell us a little bit about the onboarding process, kind of at a very high level? How do you work with franchisees? What are some of the things that you're focused on, and what's a little bit of the process here right at home around the new franchisee onboarding?
Sure, absolutely. So once Right at Home has approved an owner to own a Right at Home franchise, they get assigned to one of our Right Start managers, myself being one. And we really contact the new owner right away and welcome them to Right at Home and give them a high level overview of what this process looks like and how long they will be in the Right Start process. Um, the Right Start process is typically somewhere between, 6 months to a year. And I say that we stick with owners even after they, if they're in a licensing state and they require a license, we stick with them once, they've obtained that, even opened their doors. And we then work with the business performance coaching team to slowly move them off of the Right Start process onto a business performance coach. So we're typically with an owner for, again, somewhere between 6 and 8 months.
So if I'm a new franchisee, just been awarded a franchise with Right at Home, you really come in kind of immediately then and start the relationship.
Yes, absolutely. We make a call immediately. As I said, welcome them to Right at Home. And then we work through, every process really with the new owners from, we set them up with different subject matter experts, both within corporate and outside of corporate. We have vendors that we work with as well. So we just make sure that we hold their hand through every process that they're required to do from beginning to end to get their Right at Home business opened. And we also, I make myself available really anytime, day or night. So right off the bat, they get my cell phone number. They can text me, they can call me with any questions. And, I do everything I can to, if I know the answer, obviously I give them the answers. And if I don't, then I try to locate, whatever team or person does so that they can get those things answered right away so that they can move on to
Yeah,
the next phase or the next step.
that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about, what are some of the systems and things that as a new franchise owner, I need to get under my belt and what that might look like.
Sure, absolutely. So one of the first things that we do is we have a welcome Zoom call with our subject matter experts or our core project team here at Right at Home. And that core project team consists of online marketing, their software team that they're going to need to work with, the operational software team, sorry, as well as people strategy, which helps them in terms of recruiting and hiring. So those are just a few of the teams here, right, that they work with at Right at Home. Many different teams in order to make sure that they're successful on their journey to getting open. They meet with a licensure team right away so that if their state requires a license, then we have a vendor, right, that we work with. So we introduce them to the vendor that they work with in order to get their license. So we also have a project plan that we work off of, and that really encompasses everything. It's every within Right at Home corporate, as well as the new owner, all of the different tasks and things that they have to do in order to have a legal operating Right at Home business.
So you really come in and are kind of quarterbacking all of this. You've got a project plan that you run off of, and it sounds like it's pretty nuanced based upon the state or some of those other requirements. Is that true?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So every state is just slightly different. I can't tell you off the top of my head how many states require a license, but the majority of states do. And every state is just a little bit different in terms of their requirements for licensing. And so we have a team, an internal team here at Right at Home Corporate, our licensure team, as well as an external team, again, a vendor that we work with that really works with new owners specifically to make sure that they comply with all of the requirements for that particular state.
Yeah, and that you mentioned it before, that timing and that process. Licensure is a huge hurdle, and a lot of different areas of support that can be dedicated to each owner dealing with the state and that particular nuance. As you think about when a new franchisee comes to you, what is kind of the cadence of communication, and how often are you on a call or email? What does that look like? What should I expect?
Sure. So again, right off, we have the initial welcome call, our internal teams, and then I set up calls for myself and the owners, like a one-on-one call, just to make sure we touch base once a week. And then if they reach out to me in between, that's perfectly okay. And then on top of that, I'm also setting up meetings or calls for them with our subject matter experts that are, again, experts in each of each of the things that they need to accomplish, whether it be licensure, whether it be getting their software set up, whether it be compliance, HR type stuff. We have a learning development team. After receiving their license, they come to Omaha and they do Residence Week, which is a whole week of really intense learning and meeting a lot of the internal teams that they've been working with prior via Zoom. They get to meet everybody in person and just get a more intensive instruction on the various things, again, like hiring, recruiting, selling. That's a big point, getting out there and building relationships with referral sources. So yeah, each internal team here works really hard to make sure that the franchisee is prepared.
And we are so fortunate. We get franchisees from all different walks of life and backgrounds, and I'd love to know a little bit, as you think about getting to know new franchisees and what their experience is, and maybe what their strengths have been, and what some of the new muscles that they'll need to build, either as a business owner or working in home care. how do you approach that understanding in that process to make sure that everybody feels like they get what they need when they come to you with so many different talents and expertises?
Yeah, oh, that's a great question because you're absolutely right. Like every owner that I have worked with has come from an entirely different sector, right? And has different skills. We have some owners who come to us with previous sales experience, right? Or really want to get out there themselves and get involved with the community. Sitting behind a desk and doing the operational stuff really isn't their forte, right? So we really just we they have the freedom to really take whatever role they want to in their own business. And so we build off of that. So if you're that person that, wants to be, the face in the community, then, we work with them on hiring, somebody who's more desk. Obviously, as an owner, you need to know those things. But, we're not going to require you to be the person to sit there behind the desk all day for all day long. So, but then we have other owners who are, come to us who've been accountants previously, and they're not really comfortable with, in-home sales or getting out there. And so we do work with them and trying to make them more comfortable and understanding the process. Our teams here, we have a specialty team that works just with owners on sales, right? Existing owners and new owners coming into the system to really educate them on, how to build those relationships in their communities. So, that's an important aspect of this business. And some of our owners who have never done that before take on that role, and they're wholly surprised that they're able to do that. But they also have the option to hire that as somebody to take on that role for them as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. You talked about kind of the plan, and you build that out with a lot of that nuance for whatever the state licensure might be, and maybe even kind of where do you need to lean in terms of some skill building or reinforcement. But of course, a project plan, and that implies some accountability, right? There's no project plan without deadlines and milestones and things like that. So talk to me a little bit about, how do you lay out, the plan, communicate what needs to be done, and how do you keep what I assume is multiple franchisees at any one time with their own plan at a different point in their plan. How do you keep all of that going and make sure that we're moving forward to get folks open and starting and living their dream of owning a business?
Yeah, so the project plan is great because there's some built-in things into the plan already that notify me when an owner has completed the tasks that are on the list. We go over that in great detail right away. And whose responsibilities are, what your responsibilities are, what my responsibilities are, and what the responsibility is of the other teams at corporate, and how that project plan works. And it really works really well to kind of keep everybody on task. But those weekly check-ins, help keep owners accountable to the timeline, right? We have a specific timeline, and that is that we have an expectation that you're open within 6 months of signing your franchise agreement. So we work off of that timeline, right? Typically, by the time an owner comes to Residence Week, after Residence Week, they hit the ground running, right? And we have like a 45-day sprint in which we want to get them open. So those are the timelines that we work off of. We're really clear about that right up front. Obviously, if there's licensure issues or things like that, we work with owners depending on what the state regulations are and things like that. But that's the timeline that we work on generally. And with the project plan and the weekly check-ins, we do our best to make sure that everything stays on track.
Yeah. And you talked a little bit about the initial goal is to get open within 6 months, and you talked about this relationship that you have that's ongoing. What are some of the other things that you're working towards or helping support franchisees working towards in terms of kind of knowing on track, off track?
Yeah, it's so for instance, we have certain calls that we have with them before Residence Week, right? We have the calls with the Business of Senior Care, which is the licensing vendor. We have calls with People Strategy to make sure that they get their paperwork lined up in terms of hiring, right? So we need to make sure that they hire an office staff person right around Residence Week, like either shortly before or shortly thereafter. Um, and there's a lot of things, there's a lot of questions that come along with just that piece right there, right? The paperwork and hiring. So there's so many different questions that come up if they've never been an employer before, right?
Mhm.
Well, what kind of skills do I need for this person, right? So, the people strategy team and us here on the Right Start coaching team, we work with them in helping them. We have so many resources on our hub, which is as you know, that is kind of the center of all of our information, right? And education. We also have owners go through Activated Insights, which offers classes for them along the way to help educate them on, the various things, again, like hiring and onboarding, all these different things. So as we go through this process, a lot of questions come up. And yeah, I'm here for those questions. It's everything from, how do I find this, HIPAA compliance, information on Posh, and can you help me understand this better? And so, you know, I'd say I know just enough to be dangerous, but I really rely on the team here at corporate who are experts in each of these areas into making sure that these owners get their questions answered so they feel really comfortable in understanding all
Yeah.
of the different parts and pieces.
And we always talk about, you join a franchise system to be to be in business, but not alone in your business. And
Correct.
you being the quarterback and the conduit to so many of these subject matter experts that will be, hopefully lifelong relationships with our franchisees as they become a part of the system. We had a question come in, and it's a really good one. It didn't touch on this. Is the Right Start support all done remotely or virtually, or is there any in-person support or visits as a part of this process?
That's a great question. Um, so mostly virtual, but yes, we make a Right Start visit out to the owner. Typically, a month or so after they get open. So after they've open their doors and they have caregivers and clients, we'll make a trip out to visit them in their office and spend some time one-on-one with them, which to me is invaluable.
Yeah.
There's nothing like sitting with an owner in their office, after getting to that point, right? It's a lot of work getting to that point, and it's really nice to just sit there with them one-on-one in their office and meet their office staff and work with them on, anything, that's left over they have questions on. Another thing that I forgot to
Yeah.
mention in talking about them, meeting with the different teams here at corporate, we also, after Residence Week, set up a visit with them in an office. So we find another owner nearby who will host them for a few days so that they can really see what it's really like, right? Real life office. And we have so many great owners in our system who are willing to do that for a new owner and be a mentor, if you will.
Yeah, I think, between validation and then those visits, I think, I believe one of the strengths of our system is the system itself and the collegiality and, the desire of so many of our owners just to help other people be successful. And, they say success leaves crumbs, and some of our most successful franchisees are the ones that give the most back to new franchisees or other people in the system. And it's just awesome to see. You talked a little bit about all good things come to an end, and eventually our folks graduate. So what does that kind of graduation period look like? What are some of the things that need to be accomplished, and then how is that transition to the business performance coach?
Yeah, so after we do our right start visit or go visit the owner in office, typically after that, and how I typically facilitate that is I have their business performance coach join us on our weekly calls. I think that helps, introduce that business performance coach. We don't just be like, okay, we're done. And it's more of a transition where we'll have several calls together so that they can build a relationship with that business performance coach before letting this relationship go, if you will. Although we never do that, right? We're always here and part of the system and available to owners regardless, right? Provide any amount of support that we can also to the business performance coaches and vice versa. They do the same for us. So we have a great relationship and we work really closely together. But our approach is different and our coaching is to different things, right? So it's kind of helpful in that transition period for owners to have both their Right Start coach and their business performance coach. So we get them to all things, right? Open and running and caregivers and clients, and their business performance coach really help them think about, the future and growth and how do we get there. So that transition period really depends on the owner and kind of where they're at.
Yeah, that's great. We have another question here, and it's another really great one. So when do you start the recruitment for patients and caregivers during the Right Start process? When does that kind of fall in the plan and the timeline?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have a requirement that they hire their office staff first. There has to be 2 full-time office staff. The owner can be one of those. And so they just need to hire one other full-time person in the business. And then they can start hiring caregivers. So once they hire at least 2 caregivers, we consider them open and ready for business. And it's at that point where they can start taking on clients.
Great. And love the questions. Please submit more if you have them. Oh, we've just got another one. What kind of research is done to determine whether a new demographic can be successful?
That's not a question that I can answer. That would be something more your.
So we'll take that a little bit on the franchise development side. So when we look at the territory, our territories are defined by senior 65 and over, and a minimum number, minimum 15,000 plus in that territory. That's how we designate the territories. The research and the onus is always on the prospective owner to understand that particular market, whether it's the geography, the demographics, travel time, all of those sorts of things. So we work really hard on evaluating the available territories, but ultimately it's on the prospective franchisee to understand that market well, and that local knowledge is always super critical. And there's another question: Are the vendors, like the licensure vendor, included in the estimated cost to own of $92,000 to $165,000? That again may be more of a franchise development question, and one I may not be able to answer here without researching the FDD, unfortunately. So we'll try to circle back. We've got the individual that submitted that question, so we'll try to circle back on that with a definitive answer. But thank you for asking. Michelle, we talk a little bit about kind of around here that it's like drinking from a fire hose when you join Right at Home. So tell me a little bit about what that's like, that experience for a new franchisee. There is a tremendous amount to know, even if you come from a a bit of business ownership background or a healthcare background or even, home care in some instances. So tell me a little bit about, from your experience, what that's like. How do you coach folks through it? What's that experience like for a new franchisee?
Yeah, it is a lot. So, you start out and, there's four or five pieces that you might be thrown at them all at one time, right? You're talking about doing a lot of things all at once. You're talking about working on a business license. You're talking about, finding a place for your office space. You're talking about, getting your software set up, getting your office then set up, ordering signage, learning policies and procedures and getting those in place. Yeah, just doing a whole lot of things in a short period of time in order to get up and running. And so it's just important, right, that these owners stay engaged. One of the great things, obviously, about buying a franchise versus starting it from scratch is you have all of the information and support that you need as long as you utilize it, right? I would say my biggest challenges have been just from owners who've maybe owned other businesses and they want to join Right at Home because Right at Home is a great franchise, and we have a great reputation, but wanting to do things 100% your way or thinking that all the things, and those are the most difficult and unfortunately not as successful as those who embrace our resources and our best practices and utilize our system and our system support.
Yeah. Well, and there's a question that just came in. So do you notice a trend of certain characteristics or qualities in Right at Home's most successful franchise owners? And if so, what do you think those qualities are?
Yeah, I would say those qualities, in my experience, have been those who are, who are willing, right, to listen and embrace the system. I would say those people are the most successful. Those who follow our best practices, who aren't afraid to ask questions, aren't afraid to network with other Right at Home owners. Those are the ones who ultimately end up being the most successful.
Yeah, it's that foundation, that success leaving a trail, and then I love your point about engagement and staying engaged, whether it's been whether you're a newbie or somebody who's really been seasoned. And again, I think through those office visits, validation, support from the SLC, support from regional meetings, it's really amazing to see what our franchisees do to help anybody, whether they're new or seasoned. So last question here, Michelle, what's your favorite part of your job?
Wow, that's tough. I would say I love in the beginning, they're just, they don't know, right? And they're unsure. And I just love seeing it come to fruition. I love, when we get to that point where I can go to their office, like I said, and sit down with them in their office and chat with their office staff. And it's like, you made it, you did all the things, right? And it's a tough, road sometimes. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but it's totally worth it. And I just love getting to that point with them where, we've gotten through all of the things and now they're open and running. And so, yeah, I'd say that's my favorite part.
That's pretty awesome. So we're coming up on time. I want to thank our attendees today and for your engagement and your great questions. We got a little bit of follow-up to do. Michelle, thank you for your time and what you do to really support our new franchisees and doing it with so much professionalism and so much dedication to their success. It's really, you help set the stage by bringing that foundation, and it is a lot. It's a huge journey. It's not lost on us ever. The jump that new franchisees take joining Right at Home, and we're grateful for every single one. So. Thanks again, Michelle, and
Yes, thank you.
everybody take care. Have a great rest of your day, and we appreciate your time. Bye.